The Uncharted Future. A collection of sci-fi visions. By Rainer.
Yeah.
This short story is called Time-Looped Society. In 2047, humanity's understanding of time expanded beyond the limits of linear progression. Through decades of research, the discovery of quantum time dilation enabled temporal manipulation, a long-speculated breakthrough. Quantum physicists at the Institute for Temporal Dynamics succeeded in creating a system capable of stretching and compressing time in isolated zones. Early uses of this technology transformed industries. Aging could be halted for critical patients, interstellar journeys could be shortened, and communications, unbound by the delay of time zones, flowed seamlessly. The applications seemed boundless, but as with any advancement, the unforeseen crept in. Scientists, working to synchronize the world's clocks, triggered the first time loop in a mid-sized city. What was supposed to be a flawless experiment became a recursive cycle, a 24-hour period replayed endlessly for those trapped inside. The citizens, oblivious to the reset, lived out the same day, unknowingly locked in time. The time loop had a basis in quantum mechanics, not in magic or speculation. Quantum superposition existed on a macro scale, where all potential outcomes of the day's events occurred at once but collapsed into one recurring state every 24 hours. At the intersection of time and quantum entanglement, particles typically exist in multiple states until observed. In this instance, a feedback loop had formed between the temporal field and spacetime itself. The city's timeline reset in an endless loop, trapping every resident in it. To those outside the loop, the city was frozen in time. The sun never moved, and clocks remained stuck on the same hour. Drones sent to investigate the area would return after minutes, yet data showed they had been active for hours. Attempts to engage with the time field resulted in failure, as the loop remained impenetrable, forming a self-contained system with no exit. At the core of the phenomenon was the Temporal Field Generator, a device created to manipulate time within defined areas. Originally designed for controlled medical environments and space exploration, the TFG could stretch or compress time in small or large areas. It worked by generating a temporal field that bent the space-time fabric through quantum tunneling, using the power of super-cooled quantum computers. When contained, the TFG allowed humans to control the flow of time safely within specific parameters. However, an experiment to synchronize global clocks using the TFG went awry. The goal was to create a stable field that would unify time over an entire city. The test was simple. Establish the field, allow time to pass uniformly, and then release it. Yet the field malfunctioned. Instead of resuming linear time, the temporal field folded back on itself, creating a feedback loop. The result was a recursive time loop, resetting every 24 hours, with each day trapped in a quantum superposition. Initially, the loop only affected a small portion of the city. The TFG had been programmed to affect a limited zone of 1 kilometer, a precaution in case of failure. The team believed the experiment was under control. But as the feedback loop continued, the time field began to expand outward from the TFG's center, consuming neighborhoods block by block. With each reset, the loop stretched further, affecting more of the population, all unaware of their temporal entrapment. Researchers watched helplessly as the radius of the loop increased. Each reset amplified the time field's strength, drawing energy from the quantum entanglement at its core. Containment measures failed, and the loop grew at an exponential rate, consuming entire towns within weeks. The fear was that if left unchecked, the loop would expand to engulf the planet, locking humanity in an endless 24-hour cycle. Scientists scrambled to contain the time loop, placing quantum barriers around the affected area to prevent further expansion. These barriers, meant to disrupt the quantum field, slowed the loop's growth but didn't stop it entirely. The loop's energy source, the TFG, continued to power the temporal feedback, spreading the time distortion at random intervals. The longer the loop existed, the faster it expanded, threatening to spiral out of control. It became clear that if the loop was not stopped, the entire world could be caught in its grasp. Quantum physicists speculated that beyond a critical threshold, the loop's field could fracture global spacetime, creating irreversible damage. Entire timelines might cease to exist or become entangled in endless recursions, trapping humanity in a perpetual stasis. Inside the loop, the population lived their lives unaware of the resets, but researchers debated the long-term effects on their minds. How would their brains cope with an endless cycle of repetition, where time didn't flow and memories reset with each loop? Neuroscientists feared that as time inside the loop unfolded in a broken sequence, the residents might suffer memory degradation, losing their sense of identity and self. The human brain, after all, is tied deeply to the perception of time. Without the natural progression of events, the structure of memory collapses. It wasn't clear how the brain would react to the sudden erasure of memory every 24 hours. Would the mind adapt to the absence of time, or would consciousness disintegrate after enough loops? The situation inside the loop was dire, yet the number of cycles remained unknown. To those within, life flowed in linear order, but the world outside was aware that time had fractured. There was no way to know how long the loop had existed or how many times the residents had relived the same day. The psychological implications of living in an endless loop were terrifying. With no other options, researchers designed a new plan: time anchors. These devices would create temporal singularities, fixed points of time density that could absorb the quantum feedback from the TFG. The anchors would halt the loop's expansion and collapse the field. However, the process required immense energy, and success wasn't guaranteed. Time anchors worked by manipulating gravitational time dilation, forcing time to move slower within a tiny zone. But this strategy was risky. If a time anchor malfunctioned, it could generate a singularity capable of consuming the entire city, pulling it into a timeless void. Nonetheless, the situation called for extreme measures. Teams prepared for the ultimate challenge. Enter the loop, locate the TFG, and dismantle the device. Equipped with temporal stabilizers, devices capable of shielding their memories from the time reset. A team of researchers entered the loop. The stabilizers allowed them to retain awareness, but their mission was difficult. The TFG, buried deep within the city, was hard to reach. Each day the loop reset, forcing them to start over. While their memories remained intact, their bodies experienced the strain of temporal dissonance. Over time, they aged faster than the residents. After weeks of searching, the team finally reached the TFG. But the device had become self-sustaining, drawing energy from the loop itself. Shutting it down risked a collapse of the entire temporal field, but they had no choice. Destroying the TFG triggered a massive quantum wave, collapsing the loop and releasing the city. Yet the damage was done.